Good evening or good morning. How's it going? My name is Chevy Morgan. I'm a Chevy the Entertainer on YouTube. And today I've got a couple topics I want to discuss with you, just because. So, spoiling your children is number one. Male role models, number two. And the third is Australians not acknowledging the sweeping changes in culture. So, number one, spoiling your children. So, I was just thinking about this girl I seen today on Facebook. I used to know her, and she was someone who went really wild. She was a heavy drinker, hanging out with derelicts, and really enjoying making drastic scenes. Like, she was really addicted to drunken drama and train lines, and she had an extremely smothering mother. Gave her everything she wanted, because this girl had a kind of a cute face. She's like so you can imagine like a mom or a dad being like, "You're so cute," so their little girl are going to be like, "Here you go. It's just for you. And you never do no wrong. It's always the other guy." And that may give them temporary happiness, but long term it gives them a lot of misery, and to those around them as well. Because if someone knows no restraint, there's 1,000,000,001 companies out there that will do anything to corrupt your daughter. That will get them hooked. That will get them on their knees, disgraced. And so it's very hard to be a parent. I'm not a parent. I have a dog. So many things trying to corrupt my dog. There's snakes, eat too much, violence. But when you spoil a child, it's not just them you're stunting. It's every single interaction they have with every other human being for the rest of their life. Okay, so I just wanted to address the elephant in the room, that I am a male who's never had children. So you're probably thinking, what the hell can I have to say about something that I have no experience in? But I'm a member of society, and I know this girl, she's a food blogger, got hundreds of thousands of followers, and she doesn't even eat the food. So why do you trust anyone? Just because someone doesn't have formal experience in that department doesn't mean they can't offer their perspective. Because, there was this Australian singer, I think it was John Farnham, he did a cover of Led Zeppelin, the band from the 70s, song Stairway to Heaven. And apparently he never heard the original version, but he gave the best rendition. So sometimes having a vanilla perspective on things can give the most fresh look at things. So yes, I am a cis white male, whatever that means, and so I haven't had kids. I've got a dog, as I said. So what could I have to offer? But I can observe society, and because I haven't got kids, I've got time to make this video. Oh, what's up? Okay, so I had a talk with my partner, my fiance, on our morning walk about spoiling children, and her position was that being too hard on your child is, if not more damaging than spoiling your child. To constantly discipline them, make sure they're always getting their errands done, extremely strict with their diet, with their friends, taking out their anger onto the child. Of course, that is a much worse life than just giving them too many cell phones and candies and not telling them off if they've done anything wrong. But what I've noticed is there seems to be a connection between spoiling a child and neglecting responsibilities. So it may be that word spoil is very complicated, because you can give materialistic possessions such as their own private room, very large, big bed, fancy clothes, lots of shoes, bank allowance. And that seems to be a substitute for undivided attention from the parental figure to the child. So it is not the actual materialistic possession itself or the love language of gift giving the problem. It's when parents substitute their time and energy with gifts. And you can see that. And I was reading an article about this because I was told that, look, you got to sound academic on these videos. You don't want to be like some yahoo who's just like a comedic stance on things. Like my fiance was saying she wants to be proud of me as a vlogger, and I'm kind of torn with that because I want to be my authentic self. But I understand there has to be formalities in life. Like I've been to restaurants before in Chapel Street in Melbourne where the waiters are just way too friendly. Like they tell you about they got their pap smear that day. Like, look, I've got this piercing, it's still bleeding. How sick is that? But you got to have some formality. You got to have some boundaries because otherwise it's just pure chaos. And I don't want raping and pillaging. You know, I'm a fan of like lock your doors. Like I don't want any crackheads coming in and stealing my shit. So when it comes down to spoiling, I read this article about parental overindulgence during childhood, and it transfers statistically from childhood to adolescence, which goes into young adulthood. And it's more neglect and the lack of enforcing rules, which is the issue with spoiling. So I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking your child is extremely cute, because some of them are. Like, they're so cute, you just want to just fucking... But what I wanted to say is it's a lack of punishment or lack of boundaries for rules. Like Jordan Peterson had to talk about this on his latest Joe Rogan episode. Here's a game, but there's complete freedom. And this is it. Basically saying a game with no boundaries is terrible. It's too many options. It's just ridiculous. I can't make a decision. And so what I've noticed is if a parent to a child just gives them no rules, then the child knows no boundaries and they find adulthood frustrating because they haven't had to channel their energy into any borders. It's like, imagine in Men in Black, that extremely bouncy ball that went around crashing everything. It was like 1999. I watched that in the cinema. My dad won tickets. I got a t-shirt, wore it for years. But that ball was like so crazy, crashing everything. It was designed to have boundaries, to be in a place where it wouldn't shock everything, because it's just the creator itself is not going to reproduce. Like, no one's going to want these bouncy balls if they're just going around smashing everything, because it's a danger. You could put it through a hole through someone's temple, or you could ruin someone's laptop that has the next, Gone with the Wind book written on there, and that's just be a tragedy. But imagine if Gone with the Wind was written today, it probably wouldn't even be successful. I mean, there's so much things fighting for your attention. There's no one product that can really captivate our senses. Like Woody Allen releases a new film on like Amazon Prime or Stan or some kind of streaming service. It's like whoop-de-doo. Like, it's so hard to even give credit to any source of art now because it's just too much vying for our attention. And if you spend time with like teenagers, they're all about the TikTok stars. They can spend like 17 hours a night on there, which, is kind of ironic. In China, they turn it off at 10 p.m. Isn't that pretty crazy? Like, the Chinese government cares about the next generation so much, they offer rules. They do not let their child go without boundaries. Now, to me, a spoilt child is one that's allowed to go on TikTok until 3 a.m. every day. And that kid, because it had no boundaries, she or he is tired the next day. And when you're tired, you go for an instant sugar rush to get rid of that lethargicness. And then that sugar rush gives you a come down. And so then you get depressed. And then you're less productive and you're less fun to be around and get invited to less events. You get invited to less events, you don't meet a life partner, okay? And you don't get that social interaction that builds you to job security. Then you're going to be stuck at home until your 30s because you couldn't find a job because of the poor communication skills. So in essence, if you let your kid go on TikTok, they're going to be living with you till their 30s. They're going to be completely unloved. They're going to be, overweight, on Prozac, because they've got, obviously it's just a fantasy, like it's an evil dystopian fantasy, but it can be true. So I think in Australia, which is quite a rich country compared to Ukraine, where my fiancé is from, it's a much more issue of spoiling your children rather than being overly strict, because we have the highest middle-class population in the world. Something like 66% of Australia has a dual income, like per household, like over 125 grand or something like that. And so that entitles you to middle-class status. And just like in poor countries neglect, rich countries have the different type of issues. And these corporations who run these advertising companies for products specifically aimed at children and adolescents, they are so intelligent. Like they're probably self-medicating with a bit of cocaine at work, and so they're not really humane. It kills your empathy. So they're just trying so hard to push these products onto your child to a point where you have no chance. Like if you're coming home from work so fatigued, how are you supposed to compete with this beautiful Rockstar energy drink with all these lovely graphic design? It's got like a team of experts just on that purple color, on that guava color. It's just so magnetic. It's want to lick at the can, it's just so beautiful. How can a parent compete with that? Because there's a team. There's hundreds of people working to make this beautiful, sugary, caffeine-infused beverage as addictive and sexy as possible. So it must be very hard to be a parent. No wonder why most people are just like me, being lazy and getting a dog, because it's so hard to compete with these multinational corporations who are trying to infect your child with these goods in order to increase their profits, no matter the consequences, no matter the ethical consequences. And I think people usually think about their lives in a unitary fashion, like a very individualistic. We think about our dopamine levels, our personal rush, getting home from work, how we feel about things, but we forget the communal aspect, because you release someone out to the world, that's going to get back to you somehow. You create a child, it goes out into the world, it has interactions all the time, that's going to come back to you. But it's very hard to see the direct connection. So it's so easy to just say, get out of the way. There's my squirrels and screw everyone else. But if everyone has that mentality, then society will just collapse. You have to live your life as if there's a documentary crew following you around. You're not going to throw out that Twix wrapper on the beautiful Australian footpath with gum trees in the background and the kookaburra is squirking. You're not going to throw out that wrapper if there's a camera crew following you, like, crikey, here we go. So, but if you're alone, you're like, fuck it, it's just one little wrapper. Someone will pick it up. My next point is male role models. So, you can be a conspiracy theorist, or you could just it could be a natural product of what the customer wants. But I feel like there's a huge shortage of male role models in this day and age. 2022, end of January, it's hard to find men to respect, particularly for children, adolescents. That's why I think these social media stars, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, are doing so well with children. Like, I used to do support work for autistic children, and they stay up to 2 a.m. every night watching YouTube videos. When they get sick of playing games, they'll just watch these 25, 35-year-old American YouTubers play these video games, and then they comment on them. Oh, look, I'm going to go kill this leprechaun. Wow, I just shot him in the face. Look at his blood everywhere. Crazy. Wow, look on the screen. See the splurt as the bullet enters the temple, and then the graphics, you can see like the ligaments just like frothing against the wall. And that's how they describe, so these kids, they love it. And it must be really tough, because dads are taught their primary purpose on this life is to bread earn, right? And so if you're constantly at the office 12 hours a day trying to impress the boss so you get that promotion, so you get that extra wage, how are you supposed to come home and be a good man for your kids? How are you supposed to read them a bedtime story? How are you supposed to just hang out with your mates and let them watch you, let your kid watch you? Because you're exhausted. And what are you doing with that money? You work these extra jobs and to go to Bali once a year, or to buy that second Range Rover, or to get that extra aged whiskey. I mean, what the hell's the point? Obviously, some people need to be like Elon Musk. There needs to be people that dedicate their life just simply working crunching the hours. But for the majority of people, the more you work in a position that you have no heart for, you end up buying things that even corrupt you more. Like I used to do sandblasting and anti-corrosion technician for these huge mining tanks when I was 21. And because I was working 12-hour shifts and I was studying during the day, all I could think about was just buying these hotted up V8 Holden Commodores to justify my life purpose. Every time I was in there with this huge helmet on, just fearful of sneezing and this hose, this high pressure getting inside me and ripping my skin off, I was just like, no, think of that. You know, you can cruise along and the cappuccino strip, and then you can hear that rumble, and you park it, and it's nice leather seats. So the whole time, like even though it doesn't really do it for me, I wasn't raised to be into cars. It's not my thing. But I forced myself to one day, Chevy, you'll have a real fast car. And you'll be a happy little boy. And the people will respect you. And you'll finally be loved. And that wasn't really me. I was like, bro, what the hell is this for? But I was just trying to be a good man. I was just doing what society told me to do. You're supposed to earn bread. But I didn't even have a supportive partner or kids that I wanted to support. I didn't even see a future with this girl because she was very lovely, but she was raised to hate men and she had a lot of baggage. And she had so much freedom. She was kicked out of home at 16. And it's very hard to come back from that. When you've gone through so much freedom or lack of care, as we were discussing before, it's so hard to bounce back from that and have a man want to dedicate his life to you. Because I think it's very hard for women because when they're very young, they have so much power. Like an 18-year-old girl can go to a nightclub in Australia and she's not too overweight and her facial features are fairly symmetrical. She has so much power. She is a god among men. It's ridiculous. Whereas men, they have so little power at that age. Unless they, for some reason, have a family fortune, it's extremely difficult to compete with that. And so if you look at the skew, a woman's power at 18 is so high, and a guy's power. And if he earns more money, gets more respect. And with a woman's power, let's say her good looks fade, she has parties a bit too hard, she puts on weight, she has a few abortions. The power is extremely different. And so young men just focus their time trying to impress the women when they're really young, but it's a waste. Because if you spend your time with your nose in a book, staying out of trouble, then when you're of age, when you're finally a man, 25 or such, then you can find a good woman who you're excited to bust your gut every day at the office to come back and knowing you've got this fantastic offspring. And you're so proud, you just want to tell the whole world, I'm so in love with this woman and my children, they're fucking cute. Okay, but understand what I'm doing. It's very easy for you to watch and pick apart what I'm saying like you know me overall. But this is just a snowball of ideas, okay? I'm sparring here. This is just yo, what's up, West Side, Crips, Bloods, okay? This is not a guaranteed perspective into the portal of my mind. If you really wanted to judge someone, you have to have a few-hour conversation with them at least, one-to-one. If you're just going to take a 30-second segment out of a rant and then use that as an assessment of someone's character, it's just not fair. It's just not cricket, laddie. And I've got a very skewed perspective on things because I worked in a nightclub from when I was 18 to 20, and I was with just a few women in my life, and my first girlfriend, I used to work in a bar late, and she would come to my bar and have free drinks and then go out while I was still working. And so me, having a lot of time on my hands and having at least an average IQ, I would ruminate on the plausible situations. I would think about the hypothetical young suitors trying to steal my lady. And I know that alcohol doesn't agree with some people. Some people, particularly those with Irish genetics, they can have a real problem with the sauce. It kind of takes over your spirit, and your natural human emotions are at the park. So it's not even like an evil act. Some people, particularly when they're in their early 20s, the booze just takes over them like a cloak. And it also comes down to our culture, which really pushes binge drinking. Like, if you look at the statistics, rich people, they drink more days per week, but they drink much less volume. They drink much less standard drinks per day. So the culture is different. So poor people, like who I come from, the demographic, we are more likely to drink less days per week, but consume excessive lengths of liquor on 1 or 2 days. And that doesn't give you a chance to moderate your behavior, because it's squashing your decision-making abilities. And so your actions later on are scrutinized when you're not even a human at that time. And people also use it as a crutch. I remember at staff drinks after work, there was this one lady, she would have one sip of a glass of wine and she'd be like, woo, 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 act really wild after one sip. And I'm like, this is a bit sus. Either she's the world's biggest lightweight, or she's using the booze as a crutch for letting out the inner warrior, letting out the inner monster, because she has such strict parents, maybe, that she never had let loose. Like, I come from a different upbringing. My father was super liberal, arty type. He would like make little games all the time and just encourage you to be yourself and not get caught up in the regular 9-to-5 system. And so I had a lot of freedom. But I still had some fairly strict rules. Like, if I drew on the wall, I'll get a timeout. If I was too physically aggressive with my elder sister when I was a little boy, I would get in trouble. And so I learned I can't just be a wild, absolute maniac. That there's consequences of my actions. And so I can be civil. I can fake my inner monster. And I know when to let it out, during intense exercise, during your artistic. So this is my artistic little creative outlet. So this is when I'm letting loose my monster a little bit. And because I spent so many years working in hospitality while I was studying psychology and mental health, that I've got this bent up frustration from doing so many years of something that's not in consequence with my heart. And so I've got many years of built up little demons inside me that are just bursting to come out. But I can sense I'm not being intellectual enough. I can imagine Katya's dark Jewish eyes watching me and be like, Chevy, not very professional. But what male role models? In Australia, we focus on football so much, on sports, and at the end of the day, you're kicking a ball into the hole. Like, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I did this, they shake the ball. Dear ball, little ball, what am I going to be? Am I going to be a professional soccer player? And this thing said no. And my heart, died a little bit. But now I'm like, well, thank God I'm not a professional soccer player. I mean, it may be a good life, but it just seems a bit empty, because there's never a point of progress. Yes, you get better at it, but at the end of the day, you can have the world's best game, and the next day, you're doing the same thing. And I was taught the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again if it doesn't work before. At the end of the day, a day job can just be just that. You could have so much great hobbies after work. You could do soccer during the day, get paid $1 million a year, then come home and make a blog about mental health and cook a beautiful curry with your family and go on a nature walk and then play guitar and then join a community online, and then go to like some kind of meditation class, and go to some kind of church where you get together with like old ladies and you discuss what it means to be following Jesus' steps or whatever. Like so many things you can do. So it's very liberal of me to be like, opposite liberal, very like right wing of me to be like, well, a person's job is their main attribute. But then again, there's balance to everything. Like left and right, liberal or right wing, I don't know, the conservative, both of them have such strong points because your job isn't everything, but it is some things. You can't just spend your whole life taking acid of the forest, just growing mushrooms and eating carrots and just talking about your feelings and, you know, just showing off your skin. Like that's so much more you could do. Like what if you're Magellan? You know, what if you're Elon Musk, but you're stuck in the forest and you're just eating carrots all day and you're going, hey, you know. That's such a crime to society to not groom that if there's potential there, because I mean, by God, there's some good products out there, and not everyone is meant to be just a creative type. So you need to have the balance of both worlds. And I think it's a shame that people don't want to be male role models. Like when people get some money, if they get wealthy, like they just spend their time chasing one-night stands and gambling. Like I used to work for this multi-millionaire 28-year-old Chinese man, and all he will do at the end of the day, like he had a small business in Melbourne, like he had every opportunity, every financial freedom that the world could give him, but all he did with his time, he'd play little games on his phone, he'd go to the casino, and then he'd get roaring drunk at these karaoke bars in a really unluxurious manner, like mixing Hennessy with like orange juice and beer and playing these little checkers games and just having all these go-go girls there. And then he just pass out for like half an hour, make up and go, ah! And then he just get his BMW, and then you see like the sticker in there, he just like yawns, the fine, just throws it off, and then he stalls it because it's like it's this crazy sports manual, and he's like, I'll drive you home, it's fine. But it's very hard. I can see it's difficult. It's difficult to know what to be like. Like, why should you be a good man? Why should you try and encourage youth? Why should you be someone to look up to? Well, if you've seen the faces, like if you spend a little bit of time with children like I have, working as a mental health support worker and with children, like you see a little bit of pain in their eyes when they're playing their iPad really late and they're eating like mac and cheese, and they've got like a uncomfortable feeling in their back, like they have this glazed over like painful expression. They just need more stimulation. They're just craving some kind of someone to respect, and that's just, it breaks your heart if you really see it. If you have all your cylinders firing, if you have your emotions going, it must break your heart if you're a real human being to see children suffering. But you don't really see them because they're at home and they're on their iPads. You don't even see the suffering. Okay, Australia's not acknowledging this sweeping change of culture. So I moved to Brisbane from Melbourne last year, and when I first came here, I had a bit of resentment to Queenslanders because I felt like they haven't really acknowledged the elephant in the room. Like, culture has changed so much the past 24 months just to live a life of watching sports and drinking beer, chasing girls, eating fast food. It seems so empty now, and it seems rather odd because there's obviously some indefinite government changes and sweeping powers that we need to acknowledge. You can't just be like, it's comfortable under here. I'm on my head under the sand. It's so warm. Oh, look, there's a crab. You can't do that because it's creeping up. I mean, we used to think this is a fringe part of the radical universities where people have these revolutionary government ideas. But now they are the mainstream. They have taken over the general consciousness. So this is not the time for routine of 2019 and previous. It's time to get involved. In Australia, it's beautiful weather. We've got great green palm trees everywhere. Cheap beer. There's work everywhere. It's so easy to be like, fucking should be right, mate. It's all good, eh? Plenty of fish in the sea. Fucking truth, man. I'll be right, eh? Just wait it out. It's fine. But sometimes you got to get involved in things. And living in Melbourne during the world's longest lockdown in the history of the world, I've seen how the changes of culture are right now. Even the fashion, like I've noticed that younger men, like in their 20s, seem to show their bodies more, like they wear short shorts more. They seem to become more feminized just in the past couple of years. They seem to want to gain notoriety simply from their appearance, not from their character. They seem ashamed of their masculine heritage of achievement-based. Now, you could say, oh, that's like toxic masculinity to assume that a man's job is to aspire to greatness. But that's what we've been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. If there's a woolly mammoth coming to eat the children of the tribe, you cannot sit back and be like, bro, check out these booty shorts. My skinny legs look sick as fuck. That's not going to help. The guy who's going to be useful in that community is the one that says, look, I'm going to go fight that woolly mammoth to the death. I don't give a shit if I lose an arm. Just to try and protect this community is more important than my personal welfare. Some things are bigger than just your hide. So I see the general sentiment for a lot of people who are like in their mid-30s and plus is that, look, mate, I got my kids to feed. I got my job. I can't be getting involved in this stuff. Look, yeah, but your kid's not going to have a life. It's just absolutely gobsmacked insane to assume that you can just play it safe and submit and it'll all go away. This is a different time. The culture has changed quicker than we can even comprehend. So to think about your child's life in the grand scheme of generations in 20, 30, 40 years, technology and virtual reality is booming so quickly. How could you even think that you can provide a life for your children? Like, technology has so much more of an impact than you do. You can research right now, if you've got the time, on a search engine such as Google, that you have less of an impact on your child's life than their peers. So no matter what you do, you can give your child the most support, the most love, the best education. That doesn't mean peanuts compared to what their peers affect on them. So if their kids are super into Call of Duty and putting virtual reality on and watching hardcore porn and drinking Rockstar energy drinks every day, chain smoking darts, just getting on the ketamine train on Friday nights, just basing their entire identity based on their sexuality and protesting global issues that they haven't even read one journal article on, that's going to rub off. So you have to, as a parent, acknowledge the cultural changes because they are more important than your personal impact on your child. You cannot protect them. They have access to technology. They can stay up to 2 a.m. every day watching YouTube videos that tell them how the world works. And you, let's say you get home at like 6 o'clock and you go to the gym or you make dinner and the kid's up to like 9. You got 3 hours a night, but you're only running at 40% that time. So you're not really your full self. So when they're watching these YouTube videos to tell them how to act, those people in the YouTube videos are supposed to be at their best. I mean, not me right now, but they're supposed to be at the peak of their charisma. So how can you compete with that? And also, the kids are comfortable. They've had dinner. They're in their bed. They've got this beautiful iPad that just makes it so crystal clear. It's so hard not to worship that figure, because you're like, as a human being in your physical form, you're not as pretty as like a 4K image that's on an iPad or a phone. It's so hard to compete with that. And kids are so impressionable. Their brains are like just willing to absorb information. And yes, I would say young people now, like 25 and under, are more intelligent than older people, but they have less wisdom. So I was a mature age student doing psychology at Deakin in Burwood in Melbourne, and I've noticed the younger people, they were extremely efficient on their laptops, going from browser to browser. They type really fast, and they could retort information at an exponential rate, and it was rather impressive. And I'd noticed a change just in a few short years. But to apply that in a real-life scenario and critical thinking, being able to reflect to previous texts and relatability for real-life scenarios was more challenging for them, because they become more like a tool. That used to be a real slur when I was a teenager, to call someone a tool. You're basically just a spanner. You know what a tool is, but you're like a cog. You're just a piece of material that's just vibrating the messages from the dendrites from the previous dendrite. The axon, the hillcock, is connecting to you, and you're a messenger. You're just a surveyor of the state. You're just pumping out information that's been taught to you. You're just a tool. You're just being used as like a part of a machine, like a cylinder. You're not making your own individual thoughts. So, of course, that's great for a company to have some people who are just drones, just pumping out information from one source to the other. But I'd imagine the most sought after roles are those who can give birth to ideas. So it's all very well for me to talk about this, about Australians acknowledging the sweeping change of culture. But I have lost my job. I am extremely reliant on my fiancé, and it's tearing me apart. Okay? But I'm going to do it until I'm on the streets, because some things are bigger than myself. Yes, she is losing attraction to me every day. I am so in debt up to my eyeballs. My ego is the size of this ballpoint pen end. That's my ego. But that doesn't matter. Sticking up for what I believe in is bigger than myself. My life is less meaningful than some core morals, fabrics of society. Now, you give them an inch, they take a mile. That's right, give them an inch, and they take a mile. Where will it end? Most people have told me they're just doing it to keep their jobs. But I mean, what are you going to spend the money on? If you can't, if these restrictions that keep coming and going, the yo-yo effect, where are you going to go? What can that money get you? What is so valuable? What is bigger than what's right for society? Your personal happiness, how is that bigger than the entire world? That's just like being a Cleopatra figure where you've got 10 people feeding you grapes. You're so obese. You've got grape stains down your shirt. You've got these people fanning you, and you just replace the children every week. You got these kids who are fucking they got their ribs showing. They're so fucking starving. They're really gaunt and they're dehydrated. They've got chapped lips, and you just keep getting new ones. How can you live in a world where you're just getting fanned all the time, just grape stains down your chest, and you're wearing leaves everywhere, and you just keep replacing the servants? That is not a part of our ethic, of our core being. So let me go to my final point today, is retirement purpose. Open companies, I've got in brackets. So I live in a country very similar to the United States, where there's a lot of people who are in the age of 45 to 70 have the majority of the wealth. And I see in their faces a look of emptiness because they were taught they need to get these sprawling condos overlooking the beach. They need to have extremely high knit count linen. They need to have the most boutique wine. They need to have an exorbitant amount of a la carte restaurants, meals. But those things are just so meaningless. They don't bring you any happiness. I've been working in restaurants all my life. I've seen so many rich, miserable old farts that just sit there and they're like, oh, this foie gras is underdone. And they're just screaming out for a real challenge because they don't know what to do with their time. And I was looking at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it says that employed people decreased 2.3% to 13 million September 2021. But what I'm thinking is there's not enough companies out there. What if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you got about $2-3 million worth of real estate collateral, which most people, baby boomers, have in Australia, because we have the highest middle class population in the world. I know it's in our culture, like, man, I'm struggling, but hey, what are you talking about? Money? I haven't got much money. What are you on about? I haven't got any money. Money? No. Times are tough, bro. Times are tough. Oh, times are tough. That's what you're supposed to say, right? But if you've got like $3 million worth of property, why not just, instead of dedicating your life to these fancy dinners, these huge yachts, these extreme high knit count linen that looks shit anyway, because you never work out, you're just drinking this boutique wine every night, you look ridiculous. To be in these extremely fancy clothes, like when your skin is falling off your face, it just looks so absurd to have like a rat wearing a tuxedo. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, why not give back to the community? Because it's a different world now. Australia and America wasn't so globalized 50 years ago. There was less competition. India and China wasn't as developed, so there wasn't so much work given offshore. So you cannot think that your success is only because you work harder, you're smarter than the current Gen Z, Gen Y. There has to be societal, cultural factors that encourage your success. If you can't acknowledge that, then fair enough. But of course, there's a lot of character attributes of Gen X and baby boomers that far exceed Gen Y, Gen Z, okay? Because I'm 30 years old. I'm part of that group I'm connected to X and baby boomers, but I'm also connected to Y and Z. Whatever. But the point is, I understand that there is problems with the youth. I'm not the youth anymore. I know that I'm in my 30s now. I'm a mature age man. Like, I know older people can hold conversation better. And they're better with their money. But they seem to drink a bit too much piss, as in booze. And they're a bit more comfortable in their ways and a little bit arrogant. I've noticed just a little bit arrogant. Just a little bit arrogant, the older people, because they come from a time where they assume all their wealth is just due solely to their hard work. They're refraining from pleasure. And it's just not right. Because there is tougher now. Times are tougher economically. Yes, there's more entrepreneurial activities. Yes, you can research how the world works from the internet, but it's tighter and tighter every year. The search engine is becoming. It's harder to even figure out how the world works. But I'm just really pleading for your happiness. I really feel like baby boomers and Gen X would feel more inner peace. They would have a more smooth complexion if they were true to their hearts, and that would be more community engagement. It means investing in opening small businesses, charities. I don't mean just giving a check. I mean getting on the field yourself, on the front line, working in the soup kitchens, going to the youth shelters, or even like helping people with their resumes. Like, how many great minds do you think are out there who are just stuck at home because there's been a crazy world the past few years, and they just feel scared to death like going outside, and they feel, what's the point? Like, right now, my fiance is just going to go look at an apartment to buy, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, it seems a bit irrational to live like it's 2019, just, I'm going to buy investment property and then eventually go up in value. And then I can use that as equity to open a business. And then I can go to lunch dinner parties and then it goes up in value, and then get another investment property, and then I can use that. And then I've got a steady income flow, and then I can start living. I can go to the dinner parties, and I can have a family, and then I can go overseas holidays, and I can go to the Four Seasons, and I can have the exotic booze, and I can have the beautiful swimwear, and I can fix my phone when it gets cracked. But it just seems like you can't do that anymore. Like, just that life is almost gone. Like, I think it was pretty absurd for a long time. It's been so many decades of people were just living for those overseas holidays. Like 2018 or 2019, I went to Bali, Ubud, and these little islands near there. And I went to this hotel resort with my fiance's parents. And I came out at 2 a.m., couldn't sleep, went to look at the stars, and I seen all the staff just sleeping in the restaurant area and nearby the pool. And it wasn't like they just had a big night. It was their regular sleeping place. And I went back to my room, and I was just like, I just shaking. I could never be the same again. Like, I was just thinking, I just feel so unnatural. It feels so strange to be in this sense of luxury, like going to this country and be like, I just want to relax and just shovel seafood into my face and just escape my consciousness with this hard liquor and just take photos and make people jealous, stuck in their little cubicles. But it seems so irrational. Like, it felt like I felt so out of place with my heart to be going on these overseas holidays and seeing that these poor staff are sleeping where I'm eating. Like, that's not luxury. Like, what is luxury? Like, I'm using my wealth from a rich country that I was born into, and I'm going to a poor country where they never had those opportunities, and I'm like trying to use my colonial prowess to feel a sense of entitlement, but it just doesn't work. For someone like myself who has just slight awareness into the world, it feels so hard to chase that. Like, what is that point, that end point? Yes, financial security is good because when you stress about money, you can't think about anything else. Like, if you're worried about the rent, buying a loaf of bread, you cannot think about the meaning of life. You can't learn another language. You can't make a goddamn good podcast when you're thinking about putting bread on the table. So I understand, yes, financial security is important. But just to act like just the middle class or low class Australian dream is get an investment property and then it goes up in value and then you use that equity to buy another property, and then you get another one, and then you use that to open a business, and then it just seems like there's something missing there. And I think it comes to do a lot with lack of communication between different generations. Like, I lived in South Korea for 4.5 years. My parents are English teachers from the age of turning 12 to 16. Went like Seoul, Itaewon, Masok, Bokhandong. And I seen over there, it's very common to live with your grandparents, to live with your great-great-grandparents. And yes, it seems like uncool because you can't have like crazy parties every night. But there is wisdom to be found in different generations. There is energy to be found in youth. There is hope. There is arrogance in youth. But there's wisdom and there's charisma in elder people. And together, it's like yin and yang. Like they learn from each other and they evolve and they suck from each other, like their energies, and they improve each other. And it keeps you young. Like, it keeps you young to be around young people. Young people, they get maturity from older people. But because society we're taught to just move anywhere across the world for work, the fabric that kept us whole is gone. And so I see why baby boomers and Gen X are just obsessed with having 15 properties and just having the $300 wine, but then they look so empty inside? It's because they're not seeing their kids enough or their family friends. Like my father, he said he grew up in the 70s and 80s in Perth, West Australia. He said there'd be a party every night. It would be so social. Like I don't mean getting shit-faced, paralytic of narcotics and alcohol, and crazy promiscuous sex and pagan ceremonies, and worshipping and sacrificing goats, and blood spilled everywhere. What I mean is, they'll get together. The aunties and the uncles and the grandparents and the youth and the kids and the little fucking blue heeler running around. A couple of guitars. It was people getting together, bouncing off ideas. That's what life's all about. God damn it. That's what we're here for. We're here to get together. We're social creatures. We're supposed to be together. Being kept away in these little apartments just with all so much information in our face. Like people are addicted to the news. People are so addicted to the news. Like my fiance's dad, who watches this Russian corporate news all day. All day. Like that doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem right. Like you're supposed to read something and then give back. Absorb information and then give back. Not just constantly absorb. It's like a Clockwork Orange, just sit there, eyes back and just compute data, absorb the information. That doesn't seem right to me. You're supposed to observe and report. But if you're not together in groups, face to face, where you can see the energy, you can smell the perfume, it's a waste of a learning. Like, how many people now are fountains of knowledge? Like, people can just reiterate facts for days, bruh. But when do we even meet those people? Like, it's so hard to get together because we're so stuck in the routine of going to work, come home, have a couple of beers, watch the sports, have a goddamn microwave meal, and do it all over again. Woo, woo. But getting together is a bit difficult for men without, like, it seems a bit gay. It seems a bit, sorry, didn't use that word, whatever. It seems a bit like shit to just meet up without like a alcohol or smoke a cone or watch a footy. Like, it's very hard with our male mentality, how we've been groomed, to catch up for an activity that isn't based on like something detrimental. Like this comes down to what I was discussing before about how there's these companies out there that have tailored products that are trying to make you addicted, no matter what the ethical consequence. So things like sports and booze. So people have gotten so used to commenting on sports and watching it and having a couple of beers, but that's not all. That's not all in life. Like, yes, that's totally fine, but to be your everything, it seems like something lacking, because at the end of the day, it's just entertainment without a higher meaning. Yes, there's animal instincts to go slam into each other, but like, the human brain, prefrontal cortex is capable so much more. Like, I understand you need an activity. For a lot of people, you need an activity to bond. But I mean, it would be so nice to drive around in the evenings to just see people coming together to work on a car together, or to make a podcast together. You know, like just people coming together for something. I just feel like we're too distant from each other. And yes, the government told you to stay all alone, but it's very, very hard to be told for years, like, be a responsible citizen, stay home, save lives, stay home. It's very hard to go from that to be like, for your well-being and for the community's well-being, you should go out, go to community engagements, go to a Christian club, go to a atheist club, go to a satanic club, but just get together, get off the couch and do something. Because human beings come alive when they're together. We're social creatures. We're not machines. We're sentient beings with emotions. And something happens when you're together. If you're the group of interesting people, there's like an electric energy that cannot be replicated through just contact with machines. So I'm going to end this video with a gentle reminder that you cannot judge someone based on a little video like I've just made, because talk to me. Talk to me. Make a video comment too. I don't really like text comments because you can hide behind there. I don't know what you look like. I want to see the twinkle in your eye. I want to see your body language. So yeah, if you want to fight me, or if you want to praise me, I think it's so cool if you could do it in the video, because it takes a big step. I know I can talk shit all day in front of a camera because I've knocked on my head as a kid, so I got a little bit of brain damage, and now I've got this strange confidence where I just don't care anymore. Like, my soul has already been squashed from years of working hospitality when it wasn't really right for me, and I just felt like my soul has already been squashed so much I don't even care anymore. Michaela Peterson was talking on a podcast yesterday with this wise guy, the ex-gangster, saying that she's coming off Adderall, and she noticed this condition where she just felt like she didn't care about anything. But I'm not coming off any medication, and I kind of feel like for the past few years, I think it's just something to do with some kind of resistance to the lockdown restrictions, because I felt like it wasn't humane. But I got this attitude now where it's very hard to put my personal welfare at a higher level, because I know I'm already dead. My lifestyle, I've trained to work in mental health. I can't work there anymore. So that part of me, all those times I could have been working with my clients, I could have been giving my heart and soul, I can't do that anymore. So that's the death of that life. And so, what's the point? I haven't got any kids yet. I'm not married yet. I am the perfect disposable force. I've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. So I'm willing to put my life on the line, because someone's got to do it.